Chapter 2. Shrink, Shrank, Shrunk. Okay, so have you been thinking about the challenge that one of the characters faces? So who is the main character? Right, Stink. And what challenge does he face? Right, he feels like he's too short and that he's not growing, he's actually shrinking. Okay, all right, let's see what happens in chapter 2. When Stink woke up the next morning, his bed felt as big as a country. The ceiling was up there with the sky, and it was a long way down to the floor. When he went to brush his teeth, even the sink seemed too tall. Yipe! I really am shrinking, said Stink, checking himself out in the mirror. Were his arms a little shorter? Was his head a little smaller? Stink got dressed. He put on up and down striped pants and up and down striped shirt. What's with the stripes? Asked Judy. Well, it makes me look taller, said Stink. If you say so, said Judy. What? If you really want to look taller, here's what you do. Judy handed him a fancy shampoo-type bottle. Put this hair gel on your hair and leave it in for 10 minutes. Then you'll be able to comb your hair so it sticks straight up. Sticking up hair will make you look taller. Do you agree? Is that a good strategy to get taller? Stink put the goopy goop in his hair. He left it in his hair while he made his bed. He left it in his hair while he packed up his backpack. He left it in his hair all through breakfast. We could play baseball and you could be shortstop, Judy told him. So funny, I forgot to laugh, said Stink. Judy pointed to Stink's hair. Hey, I think it's working, she said. Really? Do you think people will notice? They'll notice, said Judy. Stink ran upstairs to look in the mirror. Hey, my hair, it's orange. Don't worry, said Judy. It'll wash out in about a week. I look like a carrot, said Stink. Carrots are tall, said Judy, and she laughed all the way to the bus stop. Do you think Judy knew that it would turn his hair orange? Stink's friend Elizabeth sat next to him in class. They were the shortest kids in class 2D, and they sat up front. Hi, Elizabeth, said Stink. I'm not Elizabeth anymore, she told Stink. Even from now on, call me Sophie of the Elves. Okay, I have a new name too, the incredible shrinking Stink. But Stink, you look taller today, said Elizabeth. It's just the hair, said Stink. I'm still short. Not to an elf. To an elf, you'd be a giant. To an elf, you would be the elf king. Thanks, Sophie of the Elves, said Stink. The bell rang and Mrs. Dempster passed out spelling words. 3 of the new words were shrink, shrank, shrunk. At lunch, the dessert was strawberry shortcake. And in reading, Mrs. Dempster read everybody a book called The Shrinking of Treehorn. The book was all about a boy who plays games and reads cereal boxes and gets shorter and shorter. He keeps shrinking and shrinking. Then, just when he becomes a normal size again, he turns green. Any comments? Mrs. Dempster asked when the story was over. What do you think Stink is thinking about that story? Stink raised his hand. Is that a true story? Mrs. D laughed. I'm afraid not, she said. It's fantasy. Fantasy's my favorite, said Sophie of the Elves, especially hobbits and elves. Are you sure it's fantasy? Asked Stink. Because that kid is a lot like me. Because I'm... Stink could not make himself say shrinking. Because you both turned another color? Asked Webster. Because I like to read everything on the cereal box too, said Stink. Is that what he was really thinking? No. Okay, said Mrs. Dempster. Let's see. Who's going to carry the milk from the cafeteria today? Stink was barely paying attention. He never got asked to carry the milk. How about Mr. James Moody? Asked Mrs. Dempster. Me? Asked Stink. He sat up taller. I get to carry the milk? So I have a question here. If the teacher said, how about Mr. James Moody? And then Stink said me? But his name isn't Mr. James Moody, is it? Right. So his real name is James Moody. Remember his sister's name? Judy Moody. So is Stink his real name? Or is it a nickname? Like a made-up name that somebody calls you. Right. Stink is his nickname. Stink walked down the second grade hallway. It looked longer than usual and wider. He took the stairs down to the cafeteria. Were there always this many stairs? His legs felt shorter, like they shrank. Look at that picture. Stink got the milk crate and he carried the milk up the stairs, past the office and past the teacher's room. Now his arms felt shorter. He needed a rest. He set the milk down outside the nurse's office. Hi, Stink, called Mrs. Bell. I see you have a new hairstyle. My sister turned it orange, said Stink. So what brings you here today? Headache? Sore throat? There's a lot of that going around, you know. Is shrinking going around? Asked Stink. Because I think I'm shrinking. As in getting shorter? You're shrinking? What makes you think so? Well, my sister, she measures me every morning, and I'm always 3 feet, 8 inches. But last night she measured me before I went to bed, and I'd shrunk. I was only 3 feet, 7 and 3 inches, quarter inches. I'm a whole quarter inch shorter. Don't worry, honey, said Mrs. Bell. Everybody shrinks during the day. We're all a little shorter at night than we are in the morning. Seriously? Seriously. From gravity and all the walking around we do, the pads between our bones shrink during the day. And at night, they soak up water and they expand again. We all shrink? Asked Stink. That's what I'm saying. Everybody shrinks. Scientific, said Stink. All right. So here's that graphic novel page. I'll let you look at it. The Adventures of Stink and King of the Elves. Beautiful Sophie of the Elves falls under the dreaded gravity spell. An evil witch pours hex mix in Sophie's sneakers. My feet feel so heavy. Poof. Ta-da! Stink, King of the Elves, arrives. Not a minute to lose. Anti-gravity soaking chamber, 1 mile. 30 seconds later, my hero. A larger-than-life statue to thank you, Stink. All right, so think about the challenges that Stink faces in that chapter, and if he had any solutions to his challenges. And we'll see you tomorrow, Tuesday, for chapter 2 or for chapter 3.